Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, Clayton. I just got back from seeing the new Ghost in the Shell directed by Rupert Sanders and starring Scarlett Johansson. Now, what can I say about the original Ghost in the Shell other than the fact that it's an absolute classic of animation? With engaging themes, awesome action sequences, animation that still holds up to this very day, and very thought-provoking messages about identity and what it means to be human, Ghost in the Shell will always be something special for anime fans, and even those who aren't fans of anime. It spawned off to become an incredible franchise, and now we have this film, which attempts to reintroduce American audiences to these characters in this world. And while it stumbles here and there, I still found myself enjoying a lot of what this film had to offer. Let's get to the story, shall we? After a fatal accident that happened a year previous, a woman who's known as the Major, played by Scarlett Johansson, has her brain implanted into a cyborg body, hence the term "ghost in the shell," and she is put into the Section 9 police force, who mainly deal with cyber terrorists. She's on a mission in order to take down a cyber terrorist who calls himself Kuze, who has a personal vendetta against the company that rebuilt the Major, known as Honka Robotics. But that's all I'll say about the story without spoiling anything, because trust me, if I said anything more, it would reveal tons of revelations that are best experienced on your own. So the story here does deviate from the original anime movie and even the original manga, but in my opinion, it's actually pretty interesting. Is it as interesting as the story in the original film? No. But in my opinion, the original film was a very hard act to follow, so I like the fact that the director didn't decide to just rehash the original story. He actually tried to push some original things in it. Of course, that does clash with how the film seems to want to remind you of the original at almost every turn. Not just with the visual style of the film, which, to be fair, is very, very well realized, but also the fact that the film does recreate several scenes that you might remember from the original movie. Even the original opening, which shows the creation of the Major's cyborg body. To be fair, I loved a lot of these references as they brought back a huge amount of nostalgia from my childhood, but sometimes it seems like the film's story doesn't know if it wants to be an original story that's, on its own, that's separate from the original films, or if it wants to be a huge loving homage to the original. It can't have it both ways, and it tries to be a mix of both, and it doesn't work all the time. But to be fair, the story isn't bad, it just wasn't as good as it could have been. Now the action's certainly very well handled. Not only in the ways that it recaptures action scenes from the original film, but the action's stylized, it's full of bloody violence, it's full of a lot of great stunt work and acrobatics, and it's all helped by the excellent visual effects. I mean, if there's one thing to say about this movie that you can universally agree with, is that the visuals are absolutely stunning. Everything from the effects, to the costumes, to how the city looks, to all the different cyborg parts that many of these civilians in this future have. Everything looks absolutely beautiful, and half the time you just want to pause the movie just to take a look at all the work that the visual effects people had to do. Now, you might say that the visuals are sort of an overkill, but to me they actually helped this world feel realized. It feels like a world that was lived in, and every bit as much as it did in the original 1995 animated movie. Now the characters, let's just say that this version of the Major is something that I think this film actually did a tiny bit better than the original film. And don't get me wrong, the original film's interpretation of the Major was good. I mean, I think almost everything in the original was good. But I think this film did a good job of explaining her past a little bit better. This film delves a bit deeper into the Major's past, and a bit more of how she's feeling about certain scenarios. Both the original and this film deal with her thoughts on identity and how human she truly feels. But this film takes a little bit more time dealing with her backstory, and that part of the story is something that I found pretty interesting. Unfortunately, the themes of identity and what it means to be human, I think, are handled a bit better in the original movie, because this film does feel like it slows down a bit too much at certain points, which is probably explains why it's almost 2 hours long, whereas the original film was barely an hour and a half long. Yet I think that story flowed a bit better, and the characters were a bit more realized in that movie. That's not to say that the pace is bad, it's just that even though a lot of what this film does is very, very good, the action, the visuals, the characters, a lot of it's really good, it's just not as good as the original animated film. But let's just be honest here. I went into this movie expecting this film to not be as good as the animated film from the beginning, because it's, in my opinion, it's a masterpiece that will never be recreated. So, I do think I'm open to the fact of a different version of the Ghost in the Shell, and I think the new stuff is when this film gets to shine and when it gets to be a bit more of its own thing. Does it all work? No. Do I disagree with some of the creative decisions? Definitely. But there was a lot that I did enjoy about this movie. Like I said, the visuals are stunning. The acting, especially from Scarlett Johansson, is very good. And this world, it interests me enough to the point where if there was a sequel, I'd be totally open to it. So, if you're a Ghost in the Shell fan, I do recommend that you do see this movie. If only because it's probably one of the best anime adaptations that I've seen of any popular property in recent memory. Just be open to something new, and I'm sure you'll get something out of it. I give Ghost in the Shell an 8 out of 10. See you next time.